Two factors here. The first is obviously the economy is impacting businesses and organizations across the community. The second, of course, is that when we made the decision as Calgarians in November not to pursue 2026, it did mean that we had to look for different sources of funding. Now, I should say that in terms of Winsport, I have not been involved in this conversation, nor has the area councillor, Councillor Jeff Davison. But we are happy to stand up and figure out how to do this, because I think it's important for us to point out to our friends at the Government of Alberta and the Government of Canada that really making sure these legacy facilities continue to operate, that they continue to be jewels for Calgary and for high performance and amateur athletes across the country is an important priority. We certainly in the city do not have the funding to continue with that. But I think it's important for us to make the case more broadly, not just the luge track at Winsport, but more broadly for a multi-year investment program to make sure that we can still have those high-performance athletics here. As I said throughout the Olympic debate, when I was a kid in 1988, when we hosted the Olympics here, we achieved a milestone that only one other country had ever achieved, which is to host an Olympics at which you don't win a gold medal. The only other country to ever achieve that, by the way, also Canada, in 1976 in Montreal. And of course what we saw in Vancouver, what we saw in Sochi, and what we saw in Pyeongchang is the Canadian athletes are dominating, and that's precisely because of the investments in facilities here in Calgary.
Do you have any understanding of how this came about? Because obviously the federal and provincial governments have put money into this project to do it. Why there's such a shortfall?
I don't mind telling you today, I was a little bit surprised when I heard about it on the news today, and I want to find out more.
But the city does not have any capacity to assist in any way?
We've never been asked, and I don't think we have the capacity, but certainly if this was such an urgent need, I'm a little surprised that I hadn't heard about it before today.
No one's approached you.
With the government putting more rail cars with oil products on the rails, any safety concerns with those trains rolling through Calgary?
We are always working with our partners at the railways. We do have a CP main line running through downtown Calgary to ensure that everyone is safe all the time. And certainly, we have had very good safety operations from our railway partners. Though I often say that I wish that municipalities had more regulatory control over that industry. That said, I think everyone would agree that this is a necessary short-term thing to do. But the ultimate answer for energy access is the safer answer and the smarter answer, which is we got to get pipelines built.
Mayor, have you reached an agreement yet with the Chamber of Commerce and the business groups that you're talking to with regards to the downtown tax problem?
It's interesting that you would characterize it that way. I don't think that any other government has to reach agreement with anyone on what they do on taxes. That said, the Chamber has been a very, very good partner of ours. Calgary Economic Development has also been reaching out, particularly to small business, to figure out how they are impacted on this. Fundamentally, in the short term, council will have to decide, but I'll be advocating in the short term for council to use a three-pronged approach for 2019. One of which we've already done, which has impacted a bit of a shift from business taxes to residential taxes. The second is, again, already done, showing restraint in our own operating budget and applying savings at this point that we find to the business tax piece. And the third is we are going to need some one-time money. I'm confident that we will be able to cap those taxes for 2019 somewhere south of 10%. I don't know how far south of 10%. Those numbers are still being run right now. For 2020 and years forward, there are two other options that I really want to analyze in much more detail, and that work is underway right now. The first is creating a separate business class for small businesses, which we now have the legal authority to do, so that if this continues to happen, at least we can shield those businesses with fewer than 50 employees from some of the impact of it. And the other is, I want to see if there are any legal recourse to actually cap the reductions. Because the thing that we forget is that these increases in taxes are caused by many people getting huge decreases in their taxes. And if we can cap the top, can we also cap the bottom? And that would help us balance the money a bit better.
Do you know what it's going to cost you to cap this at 10% or below 10%?
45 million today will get us just below 10% in one-time funding. I don't know that I have any more than 45 million in one-time funding, but there may be some money in other buckets as well.